Is your airbrush starting to feel a little bit slow, a little bit sluggish, and you've cleaned the nozzle and you've checked everything that you're usually working on, and it seems like the performance is just degrading over time? It's very, very possible, if you've never done a complete disassembly on your airbrush, it's very possible that the needle bearing or needle packing, whichever you choose to call it, is become building up with debris inside the needle bearing, and no amount of lube or anything is going to save you from that. We got to get in there and get the paint out. Most airbrushes have a needle packing very similar to what I'm going to show you guys today, and with the exception of a few, some of Badger's are a sealed unit that you cannot actually disassemble, so you'll have to get in there and just clean them if they get to that situation. But when they go out, you got to send them back to the factory. But most airbrushes do have a needle packing, and most of them are similar to the one I'm going to show you today. So let's get into it.
All right, so the way the needle passes through the bowl, and this is what I'm talking about, the needle packing sits behind here and underneath here and sits behind the bowl. What happens is paint starts clogging up in this section around the needle there. If you've ever let paint dry up inside your airbrush, chances are very high that you have a bunch of paint and debris built up in there. And so in order to get that and clean that out properly, we're going to have to take the needle packing out. So I'm going to do a disassembly and put back together. I'm going to remove the head assembly, and we can do a full breakdown on this brush while I'm at it. This is a GSI Creos. Actually, I will not take off the nozzle on this. This brush is currently pretty clean. And pull the needle back out. I can pull it right out through the front once the head assembly is out. Take the barrel off. And most airbrush trigger assemblies are pretty similar to this. Badger's a little bit different. And pull the trigger out. The part we're looking at dealing with today is down in here. You won't be able to see it. Now they make a tool to get in there and remove that packing. If you do not have that tool, you can also remove it with a screwdriver like this. The tool is designed to help you not over tighten it, because it's very easy to over tighten this. So you would have to get in here and you have to work blindly, so you'll have to feel it get on the threads. Notice I'm actually doing it with my screwdriver. Obviously I didn't get it all the way unscrewed. Oh, had some debris still in there. See, the airbrush wasn't clean. So, and this is the little piece. Stop. And this is what the little needle packing looks like. If you over tighten this when you put it back in, what'll happen is it'll squish this little Teflon seal and get out of round. If this is clean on the inside, it should simply slide over your needle without any resistance whatsoever. If it is not clean and is dragging, then you know that part is very dirty. Now you've probably heard me talk possibly about not using these brushes in your airbrush. If the needle packing is out and disassembled, this is one of the few places that I think a brush like this is good for, and that you can come through the front, back in through, hopefully you can see that going into the bowl. And now I can come in through the front and push that brush through there and get in there using the smallest brush, or you can get some dental brushes, things like that, and slide through and clean the debris out of the threads as well. We want to get all the debris out of there while we're in it. Make sure we get any dirt and debris that is in there. Now what this tool is designed for, and I don't actually have the correct one for this airbrush, but it's still handy to hold it. What it's designed for is for you to be able to put it in there and then tighten down until you get resistance on that packing and feel it, so that you can't over crush that that packing. However, if you do not have that tool, or the pin that you have is too small, like is in my case on this particular brush, what I'm going to do is you got to come back in through there, and you could use the screwdriver, but it's much easier if you have one of these. So you're going to have to work blind, and then you're going to screw it until you just feel it touch. Now, once you just feel it touch, what you're going to have to do is take your needle, go through there, the actual needle you're going to use, and put your needle in there. It's probably a little bit too loose. You can probably feel that it's a little bit too loose. So you're going to put your tool back in there, or your screwdriver, and this is the important part. When you tighten this up, you just want to touch it. Like, you should probably won't even see my fingers turn. It's going to be such a small amount that I'm going to tighten that up. Then I'm going to check it again. I'm going to run my needle in there. Of course, you're going to have to be really careful, because you can bend your needle pushing through there without something in it. It's still a little bit loose. So I'm going to do it again. If you immediately go in there and just tighten it up a lot, the chances are you will over tighten it and crush that packing in there. And with the modern Teflon seals, they do not rebound like the old rubber ones did. And so once you crush it, it's done. Now, you can see it's got just enough tension to, well, it even slid then, but it's got just the slightest bit of drag on that needle, and that's where you want it to be. While I got this out, they also have this handy little tool for the air valve, and the performance of the air valve, if you ever get paint back in here, which you're not supposed to if your needle packing is right, you shouldn't get paint back in there, but over time they tend to get sticky. So I'm going to show you how to disassemble the air valve and reassemble it. If you have the tool, great. If not, you can get in there with a pair of tweezers and remove this flat piece, but it is so much handier to have this tool. You have that. Most of them are going to be this way. That round piece, then your spring, then this piece. Take the back side of an old needle. I'm actually going to use a new one, but that's my good one, but that's okay, because I'm just going to be careful. And you can push and get that piece out of there. Now, there's a little O-ring that sits in there. In order to get to it, you have to kind of grab and hit the edge of the O-ring and push, and it'll fall out as it just did. Make sure you do that somewhere where you're not going to lose the parts, because, well, they're small. They go somewhere, you're going to be in trouble. So what you would do is take that apart, disassemble it, make sure your O-ring is not cracked, brittle, things like that. Now to reassemble it, simply slide the O-ring on your needle, come in upside down on your brush, back through the hole, and the O-ring will fall on your needle into the position, and so when you pull that needle out, it's in position. Reassembling, by that piece goes down. Almost all of them are the same. Make sure you push that in with something flat and blunt. When you assemble the air valve, this piece right here, make sure this is clean. Rubber end goes to the top on this particular airbrush. Most of them will be the same as that. Then the spring goes on, and the capture ring. If you do not have the tool, I have successfully got them started by pushing really tight on my thumb like this, but it takes a lot of pressure. I have successfully done it, but it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. So then you're going to tighten that back up, and if you cleaned everything in there, put it back together, you should be have a good solid trigger. You want nice snap back on that trigger, because anything that prevents you from being able to snap back off and on when you want to is going to be a problem. Now when you put these two-piece trigger assemblies in there, there's a little hole in there. You've got to, very difficult to get in there sometimes and see it. Trying to keep this in the camera view is very difficult. That's that. Put your barrel assembly back in. The only place you should ever have to put any kind of sealant would be right here on this part of the threads on this particular type. This is a removable head assembly. I usually just tighten this up good and finger tight. Slide my needle, and you should feel it just barely. As you reach that point, you should be able to feel just the slightest resistance on that packing. If you feel zero resistance, or if it's too tight, then you've made a mistake. Zero resistance means it's going to leak paint back into the trigger assembly area, and if it's too tight, that means you over tighten that packing and you will have some trouble. And then putting the handle back on, and you are back in business.
Alright guys, so that's going to be it for the video today. I appreciate y'all stopping by. I'm Bill Kennedy with W. Leon Artistry. I didn't mention it. I want to leave you all a link in the description below for a toolkit in case you guys want to do it. But if not, you can always use a jeweler screwdriver as I showed in the video. Y'all have a good one. Bye.